All right, here we are shooting a night scene in July, which means we weren't actually able to start shooting the scene until like 10 o'clock at night. Had to wait till the sky was very, very dark. So we were out there with essentially these two actors. They make it sound as though the others are nearby, just in the trailer, turn off the light for the night. But, you know, since you didn't actually see them, they weren't really there. It was just the crew and these two actors late at night, working late into the night. One of the things they're trying to establish here, or at least acknowledge as far as the storyline is concerned, is that, okay, how is this family really going to cope with living on the road all in one camper? And how is this couple going to have a loving, healthy relationship with all that implies if they're sharing their sleeping quarters with, four other people? So they hint at that somehow they're gonna make it work out, and they're still going to be a loving couple with all that implies, despite the challenges. Again, this is something that is explored in the first episode, this being the first episode, but to the fans of the show, this is like the fourth episode, or third episode. So it's like, well, they did these other things, and now they're talking about these issues that are coming up in their cramped lifestyle, cramping their style, as it were, living with these kids. I don't know. In this scene, she's trying to figure out, well, what is going on with you, Russell? Something's different about you, and you won't talk to me. And he starts to talk about his experience on the road, what happened in the pilot episode, and he almost gets to the point of confessing, I saw an angel, but he pulls back and says, I saw how blessed I am and how much in love I am. Okay, whatever. All right, part of the scene, actually, they did some pickup shots on the stage at our little studio that we were using. So that was interesting how they managed to match the way it was lit and put some sod on the floor of the stage and get a few pickup shots on this scene. But of course, now here we are for this, there's a car there, and that's back at the motel location. But I think that shot there might have been part of the reshoot. Okay, back on location during the day, obviously a real location here. And, well, there's Marion Ross. One of the things that stands out in my memory while we were making this episode was that it was actually one of our last days shooting. It was a night scene, and she was waiting in her trailer for things to be ready for her to come out, and she had watched the opening ceremonies of the Atlanta Summer Olympic Games in the summer of 1996, and she was so inspired to see Muhammad Ali light the cauldron with the Olympic torch. That was that just stands out. Okay, now here we are establishing again that Claire is a teacher, and she's trying to evaluate where is Nathaniel on the spectrum of education. And so, again, something that you would have expected in the first episode, not necessarily the third episode. And she finds out he's kind of a slow reader. It's the only time they really address his perhaps being, having suffered a little bit while he was out having adventures with his ne'er-do-well father. But he quickly becomes, this intelligent kid who doesn't seem to have any problems catching up in school and being, which I guess I would have to say when they were exploring these characters in the beginning, thinking, well, maybe we're going to have this, maybe we're going to have that, and in the end, they just kind of they fall into this idea of this equilibrium. We're no longer going to explore the idea that Nathaniel was behind in school. We talked about it here at the beginning, but Claire is such a great tutor that she's going to get him all caught up anyway with their homeschooling, and he's going to be fine. All right, all of this again is just off of just on a frontage road near Interstate 80, west of Salt Lake City. Here we're facing towards the south. If we look the other direction, you would have seen probably the Great Salt Lake. You could see it from right there. This is a real spot behind the motel. Just some trees back there. And again, trying to explore what are these characters into. There's Josh. He's just would like nothing more than to be a country music guy, or at least a musician, not necessarily country music, but he wants to go to Nashville and break into music. That's his dream. So we meet him back here practicing his music. And hey, there's that hot girl that he saw at the gas station at the beginning of the episode, and her family has stopped at the motel because the mom of her family has like a migraine, so she's just going to be out of commission for a couple of days. So they stop at the motel, and this little flirty girl goes back and tries to get the attention of the cute boy, Josh Green. It was kind of funny because I guess there were some comments made that Austin O'Brien, who played the part of Josh Green, was a pretty well-behaved guy anyway. So while they were trying to explore, well, how would this character behave? Who is this character of Josh Green? Austin O'Brien himself was much too well-behaved to be messing around with a girl in the way that's being portrayed here in this episode. But, obviously a plausible moment, where, kid's kind of flattered there, and, whoa, wow, girls. All right, so, again, we are back in the motel office, which was at the real location, dressed up nicely by our art department. There's a reference here to this board right there, with little mugshots of people posing with Marion Ross's character, and it's supposed to be her. She's kept memories of all the people that have come and stayed at the motel, and of course, what we're really seeing there are recent photographs that were taken by our props master on the show, Ian, who, among all his other skills, is a great photographer. And so he went around to the crew members and had a bunch of people pose with Marion Ross and take little pictures of them, which then they turned into this collage that's over there on the wall. I think if I go through and look closely, I might be able to see myself in one of those pictures. I can definitely see Mike Lookenland, who was on our camera crew, in one of those pictures, and I recognize some folks. I'll have to take a better look and see if I'm in there somewhere. So that was fun. All right, now we did not use the interiors of the motel rooms themselves. So what you're seeing here is actually on location, but there, what we're seeing inside the room, that's a set that our art department made, and of course did a great job making that look like the kind of old motel room that you might have seen at a place that looks like this on the outside. So it's always fun when you can mix locations with sets and do it so seamlessly and know that, well, this window on the outside is half an hour's drive away from the room on the inside that you see, but you just cut it together so nicely, and that looks great. All right, so I mentioned earlier that we were using Arriflex cameras for the show, 16 millimeter cameras, and this happened to be the Arriflex 16 SR2 camera used for the show. Now that doesn't mean much to you if you're not into cameras, and even if you're into cameras today, that's an old camera. That camera was first put on into service in the early 80s. We were using it, and the film magazines on the cameras, the ones we were using, held about 400 feet of film, which lasted about 11 minutes. So we rarely did a take that would go more than, say, 3 or maximum 4 minutes on a single take. You'd be starting and stopping the camera the ways we did the show. But so after exposing about 11 minutes worth of footage, did have to reload, and the reload was pretty fast with these 16 millimeter cameras. But I noticed one time I saw an ad in a trade magazine. Someone was selling a 1,500 foot magazine. So you could put 1,500 feet of 16 millimeter film into a single magazine before you needed a reload. And I mentioned it to I think I mentioned it to Mike, our camera assistant. Hey, you can get a 1,500 foot magazine for that camera. And I think he said if they got those, I would quit. Just something about going 41 minutes worth of raw footage before you have a camera reload, and that's just asking for trouble. Because it was film, after basically after every good take, they would stop the camera, obviously, and also they would take a look inside at the little space where the film is actually exposed. They call it a film gate. It's the little square where the light coming through the lens actually goes through this film gate before it's exposing the film. And so after a good take, they would check the gate, or check the film gate, to make sure there wasn't a scratch or a piece of lint or hair or something in there that might have made the film exposure not look right. So it's just one of the. So I can imagine if you had 1,500 feet, you're just asking for trouble. Things like a hair in the gate, or other things that could go wrong with the roll of film. So we use these 400-foot film magazines. Okay. Now, once again, we've got Hattie Green there. She's wearing a hat, and this was one of the characteristics of her character early on. Always wore a hat, but as the series got going, she did not wear the hats as much, although her name was still Hattie. Another something that, I hesitate to mention this because it's just one of those personal things, but Gerald McCraney, the star of the show, Mac as we called him, was a smoker. And so there are places in these episodes where you might, if you look closely in his pocket, shirt pocket, you might see a pack of cigarettes. Although it was established, as far as the story goes, that Russell Greene is not a smoker. But that's just kind of interesting. You could look for that. You might see if something looks like a deck of cards or a pack of cigarettes in his pocket, then it was actually a pack of cigarettes. Another something that happened in real life while we were shooting this episode in July of 1996, just to put it in perspective, if anybody remembers, there was a TWA Flight 800. This was a 747 jet airliner that was headed from New York to Paris, and it exploded out over the Atlantic Ocean, not too far away after takeoff, and so it was a great mystery at first of what really happened to this plane. A bunch of people saw it explode and fall into the ocean, and everybody on board passed away or perished in the incident. Was it a terrorist attack? Was there something wrong with the plane? Was there a bomb on the plane? Was there a missile shot from the ground? There was a lot of things that people wondered about. And this was the news I was hearing while I was commuting back and forth in my car at the same time we were shooting this episode. So just a bit of trivia there for you. Now, also, just to mention, our director on this episode was a gentleman by the name of Victor Lobel. That's Lobl is the spelling of his last name. Victor directed, probably like almost half a dozen episodes of Promised Land each season. And so this was the first one he did with us. He had also previously directed Touched by an Angel episodes and an old show called Beauty and the Beast with Ron Perlman and Linda Hamilton. He had done Deep Space Nine and Star Trek Voyager episodes before. And he worked with us on Promised Land. A Diagnosis Murder, he'd also done that. So that was one of the directors that would, come and go and work on our show. Interestingly enough, I just looked up Victor's credits online, and he didn't do too much after Promised Land and Touched by an Angel were over. So not sure. I hope he has just happily retired out there somewhere. We always enjoyed working with Victor. One of the things he would do maybe on the very last day of shooting in one of his episodes, he'd order sushi for the crew. So, like the last half of the last day of the episode, we'd all take a break for a little bit and have sushi, courtesy of our friendly director, Victor Lobel. Okay, so here we've got a scene where Nathaniel is playing with a gun that he's found in the motel office, and I'll tell you that props people are very careful about firearms as either real firearms or fake firearms used as props, and so of course we were very careful. What you see there was perfectly safe, even though on the surface you're going, wow, they're portraying this very young boy, 8 years old at the time in real life, playing with a gun. Very dangerous. Okay, this is one of our sets. Of course, this is not at the real location, but they set up some things outside the door to make it look like we're there at the real location. And here we are, the character Josh Green busted, making out with a girl. The way it's supposed to work as far as the storyline of the episode goes, Nathaniel stole a key from the motel office. Josh found out Nathaniel stole the key, and Josh then just said, hey, hand over the key to me and I won't tell on you. But then Russell Green happens to catch Josh, and now Josh is in big trouble because not only did he do the wrong thing by sneaking into the room, but he also taught his nephew, Russell's nephew, Josh's cousin Nathaniel, a bad lesson in what to do when you do the wrong thing. You just compound it by someone else does the wrong thing. Again, this is a little bit of exploring, well, who is this kid Josh Green, this character, and how is he going to have a relationship with his father? And so there's this bad boy thing going on, and this tension between father and son, and this resentment because Josh does not want to have to teach his cousin anything. He doesn't even want his cousin to be a part of his life. But so this confrontational scene, which they really don't have the majority of the series, they don't have these kinds of confrontations. Oh, and suddenly he has gone outside, and that was a jump of half-hour drive away, made seamless through the magic of editing.